Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe threw for 219 yards, rushed for another 155, and 4 touchdowns as the Crimson Tide avenged last year's loss to LSU with a 42-28 win over the Bayou Bengals in Tuscaloosa. And now it's time to look ahead to the upcoming college football playoff rankings delivered by Papa John's. Russ Thaler here in the CBS Sports HQ studio, joined by CBS Sports CFP and bracketology expert Jerry Palm, and 24/7 Sports' Brad Crawford. Now, before we look into the future, guys, let's talk about what got us to this point here. Jerry, Alabama seems to be getting better, but with everyone ranked above them winning on Saturday, how will the win over LSU play with the voters?
Well, I don't think it's going to have much of an impact this week because, like you said, everybody won. And for the most part, everybody's still playing pretty good opponents. And the team directly ahead of them is Texas, and Texas beat them at their place. So that the Longhorns are kind of a ceiling for Alabama unless we get to a point where the Crimson Tide's schedule is overwhelming. But we may not get to that point. I think they may have to wait for Texas to lose to have a chance to move up.
Huge win for Alabama today. One of my big risers, though, was Oklahoma State. From just inside the top 25 to now somewhere inside the top 15. The Cowboys now control their own destiny in that Big 12 championship race. Probably going to be one of the highest 2-loss teams ranked in Tuesday's playoff ranking. So, like Jerry said, I like Bama as a huge riser today. Played really well against LSU. But then Oklahoma State really threw a wrench in what we thought would be a Texas OU final in the Big 12. Now it's a, crash course between the Longhorns and Cowboys.
Oh, look, I would say hard fought would be the way to describe Georgia's win over a really tough Missouri team in Athens. Brad, the 2-time defending champs just keep on winning. What is UGA's argument for getting that #1 ranking come Tuesday?
Well, now the resume looks pretty darn good. They beat a Florida team that, had a bad loss against Arkansas today, but that was a good rivalry win in Jacksonville, and now beat a then 7-1 Missouri team at home, have a couple of very good home wins now this season, beat a Kentucky team that beat Mississippi State tonight. So, Georgia has a perfect resume so far, and then they play a top 10 Ole Miss team, another one-loss SEC Titan next week. So Georgia right now, needed to look good these last couple of weeks, has done so. Did not play an A game today and still beat a very good Missouri team.
Yeah, I think Ohio State will hold on to it this week. I certainly think Georgia has a chance to pass them. In fact, ultimately, I have Georgia projected overall #1 at the end of the season, so I think they will pass them. I just don't think it'll be this week. The Missouri game was a nice game, a nice win at home against the best team that they have played so far. So that's good. Their strength of schedule definitely improved, although Ohio State played a team that was 6-2, not in the rankings, but still not terrible. So I don't think Ohio State's difference is that gap is going to close far enough for Georgia to make the pass this week. But it is definitely going to come. And, of course, at some point, Ohio State or Michigan is going to lose. And when that happens, Georgia's going to be #1 for sure if it hasn't already happened.
Yeah, everything is just tightening up. Washington outscored USC 10-0 in the fourth quarter. They beat the Trojans in Seattle. UW now 9-0. What's the Huskies' path to the playoff look like, Jerry?
To win out. And that game was in L.A., by the way.
Oh, sorry, in L.A. You're right. Yep.
Yeah, for Washington, it's 13-0. You get to 13-0 and you're in the playoff because there cannot be more than 4 13-0 teams, and that would be a first if we had 4. So just win them all. But that's not easy because you're in the Pac-12. You're playing good teams, if not great ones, every week, and they'd probably have to win a rematch with Oregon in a Pac-12 championship game. So I make it sound easier than it is, but 13-0 is the path for Washington.
Yeah, Washington's resume is going to speak for itself here in a few weeks if they, lead that Pac-12 title game 13-0, as Jerry suggests. But then you got to look at the other Power 5 conferences. We're not going to have an unbeaten champion in the Big 12, so Washington trumps that. A one-loss Alabama would probably get in if they beat an undefeated Georgia in Atlanta, so that's an SEC champ. And then you have other areas, FSU still undefeated. So Washington can stamp its ticket by finishing 13-0, but there might not be a scenario in which a one-loss Pac-12 champion gets in, depending on what happens in the other Power 5 leagues.
All right, we're going to broaden the scope just a little bit here and talk about teams whose stock is on the rise. Brad, we already got your pick. That was Oklahoma State winning in Bedlam over Oklahoma. Jerry, who's your big riser on Saturday?
Well, my big riser is Oklahoma State, and it's got to be. I mean, they got the biggest win of the day. They're going to move up maybe 7, 8, possibly 10 spots in the rankings because of what happened ahead of them. So Oklahoma State is going to be the team that's got the most upward mobility in these rankings based on the win they got today in the final edition of the Bedlam over Oklahoma.
Brad, which team took the biggest hit on Saturday?
I think it was Notre Dame. Now Notre Dame 7-3. Sam Hartman, the road woes continue. Couple turnovers in that game, threw a pick 6 to Trotter in the second quarter that really opened that one up. And, you know, Notre Dame went from a likely 10-2 finisher, getting a New Year's 6 spot to, let's face it, fellas, probably a New Year's Day bowl now outside of the New Year's 6. So I think if Notre Dame finishes 9-3, that's still somewhat of a failure year 2 for Marcus Freeman, considering they took the portal's top quarterback and he hasn't panned out against these elite competition.
Well, don't expect to see Notre Dame near the top of the college football playoff rankings when they come out on Tuesday. We'd love to know what yours are before we see the official ones. Jerry, you got honors here. What's your top 10 look like?
Yeah, well, I'm going to stick with the same top 5. So that would be Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and Washington. In fact, I don't have a change until you get to where Oklahoma was at number 9. I have Ole Miss moving up to number 9, Penn State moving up to 10. Oklahoma's going to fall pretty hard this week. You know, Brad was right about Notre Dame being a big faller. For me, the big faller was Air Force because a loss to 2-6 Army eliminates any chance of them, even if they win the Mountain West, which is the better of the group of 5 conferences. There's no chance for Air Force now to be in a New Year's Six bowl because of that loss to Army today.
Yeah, speaking of a New Year's Six bowl, I spoke to a Liberty assistant not too long ago. If Liberty finishes unbeaten, they're still telling their guys they're going to the New Year's Six, so they're pretty excited there. But the playoff poll, I think Georgia overtakes Ohio State at number 1 because Ohio State trailed Rutgers at halftime, needed an interception in the third quarter, returned for a touchdown by Proctor in that game to finally take the lead. So I think Ohio State moves to 2. Then you've got Michigan, Florida State, and Washington, those other unbeatens in that top 5. And my 6 through 10 is Oregon, Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, and then Penn State moves up into that top 10 after OU slide.
Now, you guys are already bringing up these New Year's Six bowls. That leads me to this, Jerry. What is your projection right now for the New Year's Six bowl games?
Yeah, I only have a couple changes this week. So the playoff stays the same. Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Florida State 3, and Texas 4. So Georgia, Texas would be a Sugar Bowl. Michigan, Florida State would be in the Rose. And then for the Orange Bowl, Ohio State and Louisville automatic from the ACC, Mississippi and Penn State in the Peach Bowl, Oregon and Alabama in the Cotton Bowl, and Washington and new this week Tulane in the Fiesta Bowl.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Jerry Palm. He is the best, Jerry, the best. And Brad Crawford from 24/7 Sports. Gentlemen, thank you both so very much. And for more college football coverage, make sure you check out the Cover 3 podcast with Chip Patterson, Danny Cannell, Tom Fornelli, and Bud Elliott, where they hit the most relevant college football topics all the time. Download the podcast wherever you get them. Do it right now.